Hey guys, I'm J77 doing another flashback review, and the movie I'm going to be talking about is Godfather Part 2, a film that is on record as being the only movie to win the Academy Award in the Best Picture category. One did it, and this counterpart did it. It's a huge achievement in movie cinema history to have his counterpart win for Best Picture. Now, the question I need to ask myself is this film better than the first film? I'm going to tell you how I saw this film. When I first saw this, I think it was 19 when I first saw this movie, and I ended up being so confused and so not into it, largely because I didn't know what movie I was watching, and that was because I didn't know it was a film based on the flashbacks, which is the rise of Vito Corleone, and the present film, which was the height of Michael Corleone's powers, and how he dealt with things. I didn't know why Francis Ford Coppola had done it when I first saw it, but then again, I was young. I expected things to be explained to me right there and there. If it didn't explain to me and never have to think too hard, it wasn't worth my time. I did manage, as I was seeing this film, to further explore this movie, and I actually got through the film perfectly fine. It wasn't until when I got older, I think it was I was 24, 25, when I had a better understanding for films, had a better appreciation for films, had a better knowledge for how movies actually work, that I went back and saw this film. And I saw this part 2, and I actually saw another version of this, part 1 and 2, which I will be talking about in the next video. But needless to say, it explains everything in just one special series, and I will be getting into that later. But as far as part 2 by itself, I had a better understanding that this was two movies in one. In fact, if this film would have been made now, it pretty probably would have fallen into, let's break this up into two parts. And you know what? It would have been justified because it is practically two films on its own. I guess the reason why they did this, and this is probably just a guess, it could be for many reasons, but my opinion on this is they wanted to show just how different Michael Corleone was to his father. Because, like I said, a lot of people always argue that what separates Vito from Michael was he had a heart, and he also had the respect of the community. Even though the community knew who he was, and they did fear him, he didn't abuse his power. He didn't go it too far as make his community worse than what it was. A lot of people had respect for him when their situations they came to him, and I think the flashbacks have depicted him very, very well. Keep in mind, in the flashback we have seen his family basically all but being wiped out. His mother was murdered in front of him. They killed his older brother. They killed his father while his father was being sent to his grave in a funeral ceremony. And it gotten so crazy that in the flashback he was forced to leave his country, his native country, because if he stayed there he would surely die. You see his struggles trying to make honest living, and that's largely because of this Don who basically got him fired. Basically, he was extorting this guy who was running a pickle store, and while he was taking his money, he told him he has a nephew that he wants to work here, and he was forced to hire him at the same time. That forced him to fire Vito because he couldn't afford two workers there. We saw his friends putting him into more serious trouble than what it's really worth. And in the end, we also saw how he uses his skills, his intellect, and his speaking, because he was well spoken, to not only, catch the Dawn off guard, but to basically strategize how to kill him, and he done it well. I think the most memorable scene in this movie was the fact that he was climbing, he was on the roof, and he's stalking this guy. And as the music was playing, it's almost like the music was actually choreographing everything that Vito Corleone was doing, which, by the way, is played brilliantly by Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro, I didn't even recognize him because when until I saw the credits, I said Robert De Niro was in this movie. Where? And then when I saw it again, I said, "Oh, there he is. That is Robert De Niro right there." And he played it beautifully, where he is stalking this guy from the streets to the point where he's making sure that the lights are dim just enough so that way he can't see him in the shadows, and making sure the gun don't make too much sound by covering it with a blanket, and making sure that doesn't become nobody else will hear the sound too much, or they will think it's coming from the outside. From there, you saw his rise. After that assassination, you saw his rise from power, and you saw the respect they have for some, and the fear he has from others, and how he expressed himself towards those who actually feared him. I think one of the greatest scenes of you seen how much that words do not, you don't need words to make a threat, was when he helped an elderly woman, gets from being kicked out of his apartment, and he actually was talking to a landlord. It was a very interesting scene. The landlord don't really know who he is, and he's talking all this trash to Vito. Now, Vito could easily just say, you're gonna do this or else, but he was calm and collected. Said, "Listen, just talk to people around me. They'll know who, they can vouch who I am." And obviously he did, because the minute he talked to them, he came back to Michael and said everything's fine. And when he said about the rent will stay where it was, Michael didn't say anything. He didn't have to say anything. His look says it all. He basically scared him into lowering the price, which was actually brilliant in many ways, because his facial expression was classic there. I have nothing else to say about Robert De Niro in that performance. We also saw finally him getting revenge for what happened to his family when he was a kid. I mean, it was brutal. He gutted the guy, and he had no heart saying, he had no regret of doing it. It caused the guy pretty much to be partially paralyzed, one of his boys, but he finally got revenge for that. The flashbacks pretty much end with him going back to New York with his family and holding Michael Corleone. Now that I got that done out the way, I'll get back to that in a minute. I'm going to flash forward to Michael Corleone's situation, which is a very unique situation. Basically, he's on the height of his power. He's basically continuing to fight a war with other syndicates, other mob affiliates, and pretty much the film really got started with me, because the film started very slowly with me. I was not interested in the party at all, not interested in Fredo's stupid wife, drunken wife. But once they tried to kill him in his own bedroom, that's when things were about to hit the fan. And from then on, you saw the strategy, the chess match he was playing with a lot of people, and he was playing it with everybody. People who was close to him, people who were not too close to him, and it basically pretty much, this chess game pretty much led all the way up to Cuba, before Cuba was taken over. And he basically, because like I said, he wanted to find out who the traitor was, and he basically played along to the point where you pretty much knew he knew who everybody was involved in the situation. He basically, you see his family in this film pretty much falling apart. His sister is basically, dating men, basically distancing herself. She's basically bitter. She's still basically bitter at Michael because of what happened to her husband. She's basically mad at the world. You have Fredo, who, and honestly, I'm going to also talk about later on, because he plays an important part in this movie. But needless to say, Fredo is still not looked on as highly respected amongst family members and people who work with Michael. And everything came to full circle on New Year's Day, when Michael basically kissed his brother, said, "Listen, I know it was you, man. I know it's you," and that's when things started to really took forward, because there was a lot of people gotten killed. His driver gotten killed. He tried to kill the guy who he was trying to make a deal with, only to get close enough to him to kill him, and everything pays out from there. Kay, who was supposed to be pregnant, he found out that she lost the baby. She had a miscarriage, which later on turned out not to be the case. You have a person who thought that Michael set up because they tried to kill him in the bar, and he ended up going away to the protection program, and was agreed to try and to testify against Michael, but Michael was able to get through his family members first, and he ended up not testifying. Because of that, you had a senator who would not work with Michael, and was trying to extort him, but got him in a compromised situation by killing a hooker and making it look, and basically with that, they swept it on the rug just so they could have his power and his realtor and his respect. A lot of things happened in this film that everything played out piece by piece. It was not explained right away, but it was, as the pieces came together, you pretty much understand why this happened and why that happened. And I think in this movie, it did it well. It did it very, very good, to the point where you didn't know what really was going on, with the exception of one thing, and that is the pretty much the ending climax. This is where I think, because I mentioned this before, and I'm pretty sure I did in the very first review I did with The Godfather, is that a lot of people complained. A lot of people complained big time about producers and even some people in politics glorifying the first film. They felt that people was trying to make them look like heroes and nice guys, where they should not be making them as heroes and nice guys. And I believe this film pretty much eradicated that, because like I said, we pretty much knew, if you followed the first Godfather, he was going to basically take out the people who was a threat to him. But many people, even when I talked to him today, really wasn't too sure he was going to kill his brother, because they made it be known, and this is probably my only feedback with this movie, because I didn't like the fact they made it be known right away that his brother may have played a part in the attempted assassination of Michael, but apparently they did. And throughout this film, you can pretty much see, because at first you saw that Michael was not going to do anything. He just said he knew that he was being set up. But once it was revealed that there was actually a bit of jealousy, that he felt that people wasn't giving him respect, that's when his attitude changed. That's when you knew that something bad was going to happen. He was going to make a decision that he may end up regretting later. And it was basically what's covered when he told Neri, "Don't do nothing as long as my mother's alive." And when she died, because she did die in the movie, it basically brought in fruition that Michael was going to try and attempt that. People said, "Oh no, that's not going to happen," because Kali talked to him. Kali came back to the family. She wanted to stay with the family, and she basically begged for his life. He basically begged for him to forgive his son, because he knew that what was down, but he wanted to. She wanted, for her sake, to beg for forgiveness, and it looked like that was going to happen up to the very end, which was probably the most saddest. I would say still shocking somewhat, but sad ending. Because as you know, he did make the hit for Fredo to die. There was no question about it, and Fredo knew. That was the thing about it. He knew, and I gotta tell you, that made me respect Fredo a lot. To me, Fredo is probably more braver than anybody give him credit for, because he could easily just say, "Oh, you forgive me, but I know you're gonna take me out. I'm leaving." No. He basically accepted it, that he will never be forgiven by his brother, and went on the boat with a guy, which pretty much solidified he was going to be taken down. Was speaking his last rites, preparing himself to be taken, and actually that happens. And that one scene pretty much solidifies, once and for all, without a shadow of a doubt, that Michael Corleone was much more colder and much more heartless than his father was, or even his brother ever was. And you can say what you want about Sonny, but Sonny did have his limits. I mean, Sonny did have his principles. He didn't cross the line as much as Michael did. Michael became a much colder person, and it's was pretty much put a stamp on it when he had a flashback when he announced that he was going to the army, basically because A, he didn't want to follow the family business, he didn't want anything to do with that business, and B, he felt he would do a service to his country. Well, not only did he follow this family business, he became worse than what his brother and his son ever was. And to this day, it was still pretty much talk about how cold-hearted Michael was. Which pretty much set the precedent for 3. And I'll talk about 3 at a later date, but keep in mind what happened in 2 pretty much set the precedent of why 3 was the way it was. This is a great film. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like this film very, very much. Do I think it's better than 1? No. I don't think it's better than 1. It's a 3.5 star film. The acting was well done. I thought the flashback was way better than the present film. And if this film would have came out now, this would have probably been broken up into 2 parts. We would have had part 2 and part 3 right here, just in one movie, because the film definitely fits that 2-part separation, probably more than any of the films that attempted it so far during the last few years. I guess the problem with the film is that I think the Francis Ford Coppola wanted you to see both sides of the coin, to see why Michael was different than his father was, but mostly tie up the loose ends that wasn't tied up in the very first film. Now keep in mind, folks, The Godfather Part 2 and Part 1 are basically one big book. There's not 2 parts. There's not a 2-part book out there. I know there's other books that's been written by different authors, but this is really one book, and it's a lot of details in that one book. And I think he wanted to give everything out in the open in these two movies. And I think he did a pretty good job. I really do. The problem with this film, I find that it took me a while to get into this movie, and there are some slow spots in this film that really slowed down the film a bit. And I think it was largely due to the fact is that I was more interested in the flashback than it was with Michael's story and how he was doing it. It wasn't until like in the middle and to the end where I really started drawing, because like I said, I didn't care about the party, hated the party, but I cared about the fact that it was a shoot that he almost got knocked off. Him and Kay almost got wiped out in this whole film, and I actually wanted to see how the chess match was playing, because the minute I seen his facial expression, the minute I seen what he was doing, I said, okay, he's going to play this as a chess game. He's going to go to this place, but he's going to find out what's going on over here. He's going to set this guy up, but he's going to do it in a way that he doesn't know he's being set up. And he played this well. He was a strategist, and I don't know if that was because he was a war general, but he played it as a chess match, and basically he won. That's basically how it is. The Kay fight, which led him to throw out the house when she told him that she had gotten an abortion, and reason why he did it basically made things worse. And of course you have the incident where he killed his brother, which, by the way, I thought they could have done a better job of not revealing that. I think it could have just not say that it was a family member who did it, but allow it to us to be in suspensive belief, and then pop it off to him that it was actually Fredo who did it, and then explain why he did what he did. But I think that pretty much messed it up when they announced it, when he had that phone call that saying that, hey, you used me, don't call me no more. I said, oh man, they just gave away the whole entire plot. This could have been a very good whodunit kind of movie if they would have done it, but I think people didn't complain too much, and who am I to nitpick on that category. I just guess it was like I said, with the flashbacks, with the way it was done, it's just a lot of slow spots that really slowed the film down, and I started to lose a little interest. But it wasn't slow enough to where I did lose interest. I can pick it right back up, and I actually enjoyed it as the film reaches its end. This film won Best Picture. It deserved to win Best Picture, of course. The acting was great. Why is Al Pacino not getting that award for Best Acting? It's beyond me, but that's the Academy for you. The only major problem I think I had a major problem, if you want my honest, true opinion, is the fact of how this film is highly rated as the greatest film of all time. This film, and I believe it was AFI who had it before, and I think another couple of major movie lists like IMDb and stuff. Although IMDb, I think they have Shawshank Redemption as the one film, but a lot of people have this film as the #1 greatest film ever made. Period. And I guess I would debate that respectfully if they had a reasonable reason, but their reasonable reason is that it's the best picture of all time, period, because it's the only film only sequel, I may say, to ever win an Academy Award. That's not a legitimate reason. I'm sorry. It would have been 5 films, they would have many awards. That doesn't make it one of the great films. I think if you ask a lot of people, Shawshank Redemption is the greatest film of all time made. If you ask people, or if you ask some of the older, film people who grew up in the 60s, 50s, or 70s, many people will say, well, Gone with the Wind or Casablanca is the greatest film ever made. Some people say Citizen Kane is the greatest film ever made. The point is, I don't think you can actually just label The Godfather Part 2 as the greatest film ever made, period, because it was the only sequel ever won for Best Picture. I think that's unfair. And to be honest, I don't think it is the greatest Best Picture ever made. I think it's a great film for its time, but I don't think it's a great film ever made. It's definitely not better than Godfather 1. And I say that because of 2 reasons. One, I thought Godfather had a much more staying power and a much flow to the film. It was very, very well paced and very, very well acted. Not to say that this film was not bad acted. Acting was great, again, but it wasn't well paced. And that was because it was trying to tell 2 stories in one. And another reason why I say that it's not better than Godfather 1 at all, Godfather 1 has a much more staying power with people today than Godfather 2 is right now. If you ask a lot of people will remember lines from Godfather 1, will talk about Godfather 1, will pretty much can watch Godfather 1 over and over and over again and watch it if it was just brand spanking new. You can't really say that with Godfather 2. Yeah, people recognize it as being one of the great ones, but I don't think people actually can watch it over and over again. I think they watch it once or twice and that's it. This is Godfather 1 you can watch over and over, and it doesn't get bored. It doesn't get outdated. This film, although it's not outdated, you don't intend to remember it as much as you watch it as you would with the first one. And I think that's the reason why I really don't think it's is the #1 greatest film, period. I will say at its time, it is the #1 film of that year, and probably the #1 film of that decade. But to say #1 film, period, when you had Citizen Kane, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, and on, I think that you got to be very, very careful, especially now. But these are just lists. These are lists. You guys may have your own different lists, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that category. For me, this is a 3.5-star film. Like I said, the pacing hurt the film a little bit. The ending, I'm not surprised, but I'm actually kind of glad they actually didn't try and make this a happy ending. But I wish they could have done a better job of at least keeping me in suspense, because once they revealed that Fredo may have something to do with it, I really just hope the film from that point on just stayed good, which it did. I guess that's it for now. I will talk about the 3rd installment next time. Oh no, I can't talk about the 3rd installment because, like I said, I have to do Godfather 1 and 2 again. And I know why you guys are asking, why am I going to repeat Godfather 1 and 2 when I just talked about Godfather 1 and 2? Well, this 1 and 2 was redone in a way that pretty much, fill in the gaps and that is The Godfather, a family film made for television. And I will be talking about that in this dance because that pretty much, for me at least, put everything in perspective. But until then, this is Jason V7 saying, you guys take care.